Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is IBM Worklight versus PhoneGap, Myths and Realities. And our guest speaker today is Jaideep John. He is the sales leader with mobility platform in IBM. Jaideep is a seasoned business development professional with 13 years of experience. He is responsible for launching IBM Worklight in India, South Asia, and creating an ecosystem of implementation partners, vertical specific mobile solutions, certified resources, and growing customer base. He is also responsible for enabling organizations to transform the way they do business and launch innovative services of stakeholders. So, without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Jaideep.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Andrea. So guys, I'll just wait for a second for the screen to come up. Okay, I think it has come. So quickly, I'll set the context on what we want to really achieve today. So as all of us, in the mobile space know, we have many of our, developers and customers building apps on PhoneGap, on Apache Cordova. And eventually, they will reach a point where they want to, enterprise enable the app. They will want to ensure that this app has got a good amount of security, both from security on the device and over the air security. It also ensures that it connects to the backend with the right amount of authorization, access, and audit. So these are the scenarios where we normally see customers kind of going in for a MEAP platform, a mobile enterprise application platform. So today I just want to spend about 30 to 40 minutes kind of telling you, how the journey of many enterprises from, let's say, starting a very simple project on Cordova or PhoneGap, and eventually getting into an MEP platform is. So that's one part. Second part is many times people, or rather some of our customers perceive a PhoneGap or a Cordova-based application to be a competitor to something developed on a platform like Worklight. So I just want to address that concept or the perspective that these are not something in competition or to be compared against each other. We have a lot of customers who evolve their journey from building simple PhoneGap applications, which eventually was brought into the mobile application platform, which is Worklight, and they were able to carry the journey further in terms of the evolutionary needs what they have as and when the mobility journey itself matured. So in a nutshell, this is what we will be covering today, and we will have 30-35 minutes for the session, as I said, and towards the end we will keep about 10-15 minutes for the Q&A. Quickly before, what I want to do, make you understand the slide is, as we see, most of the customers we work with, or most of the partners we work with, typically believe that my job in the mobile development is about putting an application on a 3-inch screen or a 4-inch screen, and how do I put it on the App Store of Android, Windows, and Apple. But what we realize is, over a period of time, it is a lot more than that. Putting an app on the App Store is only the beginning of my mobile journey. That's not the end. The moment I put the app in the App Store, that's when the first thing hits me. There is a new iOS update, new Android update. How do I ensure that my app still works? Second thing is there will be new enhancements to the functionality of the mobile app. It's an inevitability. So I would need to ensure that my users are brought onto the newer version, let's say 1.1, that's got new functionalities. In addition to that, let's say we are an enterprise consumer, then what happens is there are employees who leave the company. Let's say we are a consumer-oriented scenario, in which case we have customers who will lose their mobile devices. So at that point of time, we need to ensure that there is a fair amount of mechanism to understand who is with us, who's left, and ensure that those devices are, taken care of from accessing the, server and the other components that are important from a security standpoint. So net, what I really want to communicate is over a period of, let's say, 1 to 2 years, when companies look at their mobile journey, less than 30% of the overall effort, goes in building the UI. The remaining 70% goes in terms of things that we typically would not have envisaged in the first place. Specifically, we have broken those aspects into 3 paradigms. One is purely about the user engagement. So I need to ensure that my app connects to the backend. I need to ensure that there is a efficient push notification mechanism. So I don't want to have a scenario wherein I have a separate push for Android and a separate push for iOS and Windows. I need to pretty much have what is coming out of my backend system being sent to the user, irrespective of whatever phone he is using. I will also need to have an offline access, because you just can't afford to have a completely online app in India given the connectivity what we have. And also we will need to have a private app store or a limited distribution. I might not want to put all my apps onto a public app store. These are things that companies or organizations typically go through from a user engagement standpoint. Now, specific to security, what we need is we need to have a user authentication framework. It should be robust enough to support a dual-factor authentication. It should at some times we will need a single sign-on, because I will be getting into a mobile app and that will be talking to multiple other systems in the backend. I should be able to ensure there is no malware on the device which kind of eats into my data. And the most important thing is I should be able to push updates, new versions or security enforced updates onto the phone directly, and also protect the data on the device. Let's say I did a banking transaction and there is a residual data of my account number and password. So what happens to me if I lose a phone and somebody plugs it into a computer and just copies my entire RAM from the phone? So these are the aspects that we get or we need to address from a security standpoint. And in the operations wherein we will work on, or we will put in information around managing and enforcing various versions. So as you know, we will not stop with just one app. Typically, we will start with one version, which is 1.0, in about 3 months, because of the mobile technology evolving in terms of new versions coming in. We will have 1.2, 1.3, and over a period of 6 months, we will probably have 3 different releases in between. Now, how do we ensure that, and I'm putting a security update, how do I ensure that the security update is enforced across all these three different versions I have? I will also have scenarios wherein I need to track various problems that come in across users. In India, we have multitude of device providers. So we will have a very low-end phone coming in from China. And how do we ensure that, in spite of the fact that it is Android KitKat 4.4, how do we ensure that it works on that particular version? So all of this falls under the operations paradigm. So net, this is what holistically, when we look at the overall mobile development cycle, our cost in terms of our resources and the investment in money, this is where it gets a proportion. 30% typically goes in for the UI, and remaining 70% goes in for everything else that which sometimes we don't consider when we initiate a mobile development project. Now, going a little bit further, I just want to introduce both the product buckets what we are trying to understand today. One is Worklight. So this slide will show you Worklight in a lot more detail. Worklight has predominantly 5 components. the component marked as number 1 is the Worklight Studio. So here is where the developers will build the app. So it has got SDKs for Android, Windows, BlackBerry, Java Mobile, desktop and web applications. It will also come with native SDKs for host of mobile operating systems. It will have an adapter system for integrating with the third-party libraries. It will have what you see is what you get editor and simulator. And finally, it will also help you do functional testing, pretty much automated functional testing. That's about the Worklight Studio. The second piece is something we call as Worklight Application Center. This is more of a private app store. So here is where I can put in the apps I'm developing. Initially, I can put it for a beta testing with a limited set of users. I can get a feedback from the users. I can do multiple versions pushed across to these users. And eventually, it could be used as a full functional enterprise app store as well. The third component is a device runtime. So this is something that gets installed on the phone along with the IPA or APK. Okay, so this ensures there is a cross-platform compatibility. This ensures there is a runtime scaling, so we don't need to really worry about what form factor and what screen density it's going to get installed on. It also ensures there is a location-based event handler, so I can have various event streams coming in from the device runtime onto my server side, based on which I could do a lot of real-time push notifications or real-time updates and various bidirectional data I would want to send. And the last piece is the crush and analytics that comes as part of it, along with the device runtime. The fourth component is Worklight Server that sits within the firewall of the enterprise. So this is something that ensures that there is a communication between the phone, the installable on the phone, the APK for that matter, and the enterprise systems that an organization has. So I need to ensure that my API calls are not exposed over the over the installable on the phone. So server pretty much takes care of that. And in addition to that, it provides a user authentication mechanism. So I can ensure that there is a token-based authentication to ensure I can sign into multiple systems in the backend, while the user will still be using the initial login which he used to get into the app. This will also have a JSON translation, so we ensure that the communication between the server and the device runtime is over a Java servlet object notification translation. The server also comes with geolocation services, so I can ensure that whatever data that I get out of the event handler in the device, I can correlate that to create some amount of analytics and some amount of data being pushed to the user, based on the geolocation factor, or let's say a geofencing that I would do specific to the app. And finally, it also does take care of the entire adapter library. So it works as a adapter aggregator, wherein the same adapter library could be used for multiple mobile operating systems that you would eventually host. So even if you have 4 applications running on, let's say, iOS, in Windows, BlackBerry, and let's say J2ME, all of them will consume a single adapter that will talk to the core system once, instead of having 4 different calls being made to the backend system. And the last piece, the fifth component, is a Worklight console, and here is where we do the unified push, the SMS notification, and we also get a detailed amount of analytics on the operational data and also on the the usage parameters, and we also get to see the version the users are on over here, and we can use this console to update update or do push notifications for users using this console. Now, just like the way I introduced Worklight, I just want to spend about one slide taking you through what is there in PhoneGap. So here I've superimposed the PhoneGap functionality or the Apache Cordova functionality on top of IBM Worklight. So if you look at it, predominantly what a PhoneGap based scenario offers is one, it gives you an HTML5 hybrid development library. Second is it gives you a third-party library for integration with the backend. It also gives you a simulator, so I can see how what I'm developing from a UI standpoint looks on the phone. So that is something that PhoneGap offers from the studio or the development standpoint. From device runtime perspective, PhoneGap ensures that the web code what I write can have a cross-platform capability. So I can write a web code that will call the device native API to bring up a calendar. So it can bring up a camera. So, so in a nutshell, this slide will give you an idea on how, from a functional standpoint, Apache Cordova and IBM Worklight work with each other or complement to a larger extent. So we use the PhoneGap technology or Apache Cordova technology as part of Worklight. So when you build an app, let's say you already have built an app which is using jQuery or Dojo or Senja, and Apache Cordova as the layer for getting the native functionality, we can very well get that application migrated or transition onto Worklight with probably a few hours of effort, and then use the enterprise capabilities that Worklight comes with to ensure there is higher levels of security, there's higher levels of operational management, there is high levels of lifecycle management, and things like that. Now, so far I've been giving you a run through on the comparison, between these two technologies. Now I just want to take a step back and look at the common scenario we hear from a lot of our customers. Most of them believe that building an app on a platform like Worklight is expensive, whereas I can do the same thing using a Cordova and a PhoneGap with pretty much no cost, right? So I just want to spend next about 20-25 minutes telling you what you would typically get when you do an app using a do-it-yourself technology like Cordova, and compared to that, building an app on IBM Worklight. So quickly, here is a comparison. Let's say a company has built an open source mobile app. So the application on the left, the one you see on the left, is a do-it-yourself mobile app they build using Apache Cordova, and on the right is the app they build using IBM Worklight. Now, there is absolutely no difference, right? Both looks the same. It's a look and feel. For all possibilities, the UI development library might have been the same thing. So when you look through the phone, there is absolutely no difference. The UI, UX is all pretty much the same. Now let's go a little deeper and try and find out, where is the difference and what is that makes the transition from, let's say, Cordova to an IBM Worklight starts to make sense. Now the first part is, so here's what I'm doing. On the right-hand top corner of the screen, I'm putting in the man days that it costs typically when you have a do-it-yourself app, and then you want to have certain enterprise capabilities to harden that. So the right-hand corner, the mandate cost keeps adding up as we go down the slides. So I'm calling out the key functionalities that an enterprise app will need, and which will not be there in an Apache Cordova, which the company will eventually have to build. Right? So I'm just calling out those functionalities that needs to be built, and on the right-hand corner I'm putting the mandates for it. Clear and simple. So the first thing is, when you're building an enterprise app, we need to have a user authentication and authorization framework, right? So I need to ensure that if I am signing on to an app on my mobile, and that talks to an SAP in the backend, or that talks to, let's say, a Microsoft link in the backend, or it talks to a SharePoint in the backend. In case of a bank, let's say it talks to a CRM or a core banking in the backend. I need to ensure that there is a robust authentication framework, which can give me, for one, it can give me a multi-factor authentication, so that there's no ambiguity on who logged in at what time. It can give me a device single sign-on. So let's say there are 3 different systems in the backend. I don't need to worry about logging in 3 times within the mobile app. The other part is I need to set a policy-based session expiration. So I would have my corporate, security standards telling me that there is a particular timeline within which the session has to expire. Also, I need to build, let's say, a persistence mechanism for online-offline usage. So there are a host of things that I would need to build, to ensure we have a proper user authentication. Nothing is, impossible. So this could be done by a good developer in about 60 man days. So that's what I put on the top right corner. Now, as we move forward, the second thing that I would need is I would need to secure the data on the device. Right? So I need to ensure that, let's say, I'm putting an app in the phone, and this app is not, sharing that data with, any other app that sits on the phone. Let's say a Truecaller for that matter. So I need to ensure that, this app is secure, the data is secure. I don't need to worry about the, the offline data on the phone being compromised when something else happens. Also, I need to ensure that, the app authenticity is there. For example, I build an app, put it on the App Store, somebody downloads that app, he's able to re-engineer that app, and he's able to put in a malware, and then he puts it back onto the App Store with probably a slightly different logo and things like that, and my customer downloads it, and then he is exposing himself to a lot of risk. So we need to protect the data on the device, and this is something that typically will take about 25 man days. Now, going further, we need to secure the application itself. So we need to ensure that this application, what we built, is not going to undergo a code obfuscation where somebody takes it apart and then puts an SQL injection or puts some eavesdropping or a key logging and puts it back again. So this is something organizations could do quite easily by spending about 15 man days. Now, going further, what we also need to do is, all of us have to adhere to a corporate security process. So we will have to have a workflow for security group approval. We will have a mechanism for, the policies to be enforced before it can be deployed. So there is, a streamlined process from a corporate security standpoint that we need to put in. This would take about 15 man days to, incorporate or build over and above, a simple app that I would build using, let's say, Apache Cordova. Now, this is the key part. So let's say we build an app, a mobile app that has 4 different flavors. It's got an iPhone version, it's got an Android version, it's got a Windows Phone version, and it's got an iPad version as well. Now, what happens is each of those phone installables will have a server-side component, and that will need to talk to the backend system what we have. Let's say, for the matter, it's a SAP NetWeaver backend that what we need to talk to. Now, you will have to individually, write the adapter for these mobile versions, for mobile operating system versions, installable for these operating systems, to talk to the systems of records independently. So what happens is I will need to write an adapter, in Objective-C, which makes my iOS backend talk to my core system. Similarly, I will need to write something in a Google SDK for my Android backend to talk to, let's say, an SAP or NetWeaver backend. Right? In the absence of a ESB, you would need to do that. If you have an ESB, yes, each of them will talk to the ESB separately. Now, this is something that typically takes a lot of time because we've seen customers spending about almost 20 man days because we need to write the adapter, test it, ensure it works, ensure it is scalable before they get deployed. So we've seen typically about 20 man days is what it takes for each device type and for each number of backend systems. So if you have, let's say, about close to about 3 systems in the backend and 3 different versions, you're talking about 3 into 3, 9 different integrations, each consuming about 20 man days. Okay, so that is what we put on the top right-hand side. Now, the other part is implementing a cross-platform push notification. So let's say I'm a bank and I just need to send a very simple push notification to the customer saying that your salary has been credited, right? So it's something will come from the core banking or exchange data capture on the database side. Now you can't send that simple text message as is to the phone or a push notification engine. You will pretty much have to translate that information in the format that the push notification server of that respective mobile operating system expects it to be. Right? So Apple has an APN push notification framework, and it expects the information in a particular format. Same for Google, same for Microsoft, and same for an SMS which goes to an SMSC. Now, this is something that you pretty much will have to build because one, I would need a catalog of the phone that the user is going to have. Say, for example, there are 10,000 users in my company who's got iPhone, so I need to make a catalog of those iPhone users and ensure that those set of users gets an Apple push notification. Right? And let's say I got another 15,000 users on Android, I need to do the same thing. And there are chances where the customers move from one phone to the other. Let's say I had an iPhone and now I moved to Android. I pretty much need to ensure that this works even in those scenarios. Right? So this is something that will take about 40 man days to build. The other part is creating a secure shell for enforcement of common services. Say, for example, while building apps, we would have scenarios of building multiple apps. So when I build the first app, I have scenarios of how my installation service should look, how my branding should look, how the authorization and security services should look. So I can create a common shell or encapsulate this information in such a way that when I build the third app and fourth app and fifth app, I don't need to build that all over again. I can create a secure shell which could enforce it. Right? So building something like this, which will, which is a best practice and which will ensure that you reuse a lot of your assets, that will be something like about 15 man days. Now, the part I'm going to talk about is something that is quite important from an India context, wherein I need to have an offline, online data storage. Because if I only have an online data, online synchronization, online data store, then when I'm going through a bad network, my network drops, my data drops, and my session also, loses its sanity. So after completing a 3-step process out of 5 steps, I will have to restart all over again. Now, when I put an offline data store on the device, there are a lot of things I need to ensure. I need to ensure the sanity of the session. I need to ensure that the sequencing of the message is correct. I need to ensure that I encrypt the data. It should not be accessible for anything that also talks to the device. So this is something that you would spend about 25 man days creating. And the other piece is about mobile functional testing. So let's say I build the app, and before it goes live, I need to ensure how it works on Android. So I would get a couple of Android devices, let's say a Sony Xperia, Samsung Galaxy, and let's say a Motorola Z. Now, I will put the app on this device and give it to various testers with nimble fingers and ask them to test it. And now, after testing, they will come back and say, let's say 3 test case failed out of a 200 test case test plan. Now, I will go to the developer and say, fix this. And once he gives me a debugged code, I cannot do testing only for those 3 that failed. Right? I will have to do testing for the entire 200 test case all over again. Why? Because I don't know what got dropped or what got broken when those 3 issues were solved. So this becomes an iterative testing, and many times this takes a lot of time. So doing a mobile functional testing typically takes about 90 man days for an entire enterprise application. And the other piece is about a test to deployment process, wherein I go from development, ops, production, deployment. We'll build a full cycle process for this, and that takes about 45 man days to build. And the second last piece is about creating a code share repository. So I will create a shareable archive where I can put various various class files so that can be consumed by various stakeholders who will build other apps or other projects. This takes about 15 days to build. Now, after doing all of this, we just launched the app, right? So great stuff, saved a lot of money, didn't use the platform. I just launched the app. Now, after we launch the app is when the first hurdle comes in, wherein the first thing typically to hit is there is a new iPhone version. Okay, let's say there is a new iPhone 6 or iPhone 7 for that matter. Now, I need to ensure that I will get my binaries and put it on the new IDE of Apple, and I will do a compatibility test. I'll recompile that, and then I'll test and deploy. Inevitable, because we didn't plan for this new version while we're building it, and that's going to be continuing going forward as well. So this takes about 25 man days to test and build and deploy that particular app. Now, there are scenarios we've seen across customers wherein they did not just have a plan to support one particular device form factor. Say, for example, Windows tablet. It might not be doing well in a lot of countries at this point of time, but there are possibilities that one of the senior executive in the company bought a Windows tablet, and then he wants to know when the CIO is going to support that. Right? So suddenly we have a whole new requirement to ensure that we support a new form factor, and that is something we'll have to work on creating with a different screen size, different density, and that takes about 35 man days to build and deploy. Now, these are operational issues we find as we go forward. Right? We have a shopping cart application. Something is happening. My customer who's clicking buy, he is just not eventually buying. Something happened. Let's say I'm a bank. Customer is initiating a fund transfer. He clicks on the fund transfer, but the transfer doesn't happen after that. So I'm a little concerned. I don't know what's happening. So that is where companies will build an analytics into the app, so I get to have some information on the user actions. I get to know what are the adapter procedures that are being called. I get some information on the exceptions, crashes, and the response time. So this is something that we might have planned in the first place, or maybe we not planned so extensively in the first place, but we'll eventually build it because now the business is asking for it. So things like this takes about 25 man days to build. And now, also what happens is, while we test it for a larger set of stakeholders, we realize that not everyone is on 2G. Okay? Not everyone, so everyone is on 3G, or not everyone is on Edge as well. So I need to optimize my throughput, to ensure that there is some amount of resumable downloads. The download shouldn't start all the way from start if something happens. I need to have a minimal amount of data going in as throughput if the network performance or the speed is not good. So building all that optimization is something which I will do as a fix number 2 after I launch the app, let's say, and that is going to take us about 20 man days to build. And let's say there is a security issue that we kind of realize, and we kind of put a new update, and now I need to ensure that these updates are enforced. So there are times wherein I have a pretty critical update, and I don't want that update to stay in an app store. I want to ensure that the users are updated over the air. This could be the HTML updates rather than on the core native part of the app. So this could be about, let's say, 15 man days to build. One more thing is, this is something we see in a lot of customers when they do geolocation. The battery goes for a toss. I will have a GPS antenna coming out, and then I'll use cell triangulation. So they will have to ensure that they use the optimal mix of GPS and cell triangulation along with the open Wi-Fi. So I can kind of at times switch to a battery saving mode, wherein only the Wi-Fi antenna comes out and can do the geolocation and the geofencing. And in the absence of Wi-Fi, I can probably look at something that consumes a little more battery, like a cell triangulation. And in the absence of either of these, I can go in for a GPS antenna. So building that optimization mechanism for saving battery, right? That takes some effort to build, and that will be about 25 man days. And there are cases wherein customers will say, I want to disable the application where, let's say, I'm a banking customer. I used my mobile to access the bank account, and chances are that I would have saved my bank password and the user ID in an SMS or in a contact list for ease of ease of remembrance. That's it. Now, if I lose my phone, I'm worried because anybody who can spend 1 hour on my phone can easily take my username and password that is stored in a SMS or stored in a contact list, and he can pretty much get into my mobile banking. Now, my bank should be able to disable that device from connecting to the server, not the account of the user, which is about suspending the whole internet banking account itself, but just specifically that device which I lost. So I can still go and connect using maybe a different phone that I would have. Right? So this is about building this will take, let's say, about 15 man days to do. And extrapolating what I just said, here is where I can go and do a fine-grained blocking of users, where an employee leaves a company or wherein the user has lost the device. So net, what we want to put together is all of this put together, all of these functions put together. When a customer builds it, or when a developer builds it over and above the PhoneGap, this is going to take about 541 man days of effort. So what I've done so far is all the data that we have kept on the right-hand side corner, the top right corner in the green box, I've cumulatively added it up, and that is what comes to about 541 man days. So in a nutshell, let's say if you build a very simple app on using Apache Cordova, now to make it really enterprise grade, with all the bells and whistles, this is the kind of time that the developer or the organization will spend in terms of augmenting that, right? So just to give a very ballpark figure, if we are able to find a developer who charges or a contractor who charges 1.25 lakhs per month as loaded cost, which itself is a rarity, but for the sake of comparison, let's put 1.25 lakhs per month. This itself gives a savings of about 30 lakhs savings or an incremental cost, depending on the way you look at it. Right? And this is the last slide, so I just want to give you a quick run through on typically what we see customers do from an overall mobile journey. So the first part is, as we all know, they start with the design and development part, wherein we would design the UI parameters, you will design the wireframes, I'll build the app. The second part is, while I'm building the app, I will instrument the app with certain hooks. I need to get some data out. I need to get some geolocation out. I need to ensure what is the user's some sort of a phone usage. How many hours in a day he keeps the phone on. So there are some instrumentation parameters what we would put in. That's the second part. Third is about integrating the app. So we will integrate the app with the backend systems. The fourth part is about testing it. So before we put it into production, I'll do first the build testing. I'll do a functional testing. I'll eventually do a performance testing, and then we will do a scan and certification of the app. A scan to ensure that it's compatible with what the apps of the world need. So before I send the app to Cupertino for testing, I need to ensure what are the potential vulnerabilities, what are the potential issues that could come up. So I would do a full functional scan and certify, and then we deploy the app. And after we deploy the app is when we start managing the whole app, where we need to ensure that the lifecycle part of newer releases, newer versions, functionality augmentation comes in. And the last piece is where we actually start making a business return out of the app, where we obtain insights. So I can make a real-time push notification based on context. Context could be either the geolocation, or context could be any other transaction that happens across the event stream. So it could be either even a dynamic content that is sent to the customer based on an event or a trigger that just happened, or it could be even a simple push notification coming to him based on the fact that he just landed in a different city. So in a nutshell, this is what we see. This is what is a maturity that we all go through in our mobile journey. So I think this is a quick run through of Worklight and PhoneGap and how we complement and supplement. I hope it could give you a perspective, and feel free to ask, or share your questions across. And then I'll open for the Q&A.
Thanks for the insightful presentation. I would request you to take up the questions now as you have just mentioned. And please read out the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to your insights. Are you able to see the questions coming into you?
Okay. Yes, I did. So the first question is from Dinesh Singh. So Dinesh's question is how to do native development for DB10 in Worklight. Does it support? If yes, how? So Dinesh, the answer is yes. We can. Okay, so we have the Worklight 6.3 version that is coming out in January. It's about exactly in another 45 days. So that has support for BlackBerry 10 native development. Currently, we only support the hybrid development on Worklight. For BlackBerry 10. So I will do one thing. I could share with you some information on the 6.3 and the BlackBerry support it has. The second question is from Ravi. Ravi's question is, can we use Worklight, IBM Worklight development for enterprise, Worklight for enterprise app development? Ravi, the answer is yes. Worklight does not have any separate flavor for either enterprise development or for consumer side. So it's just a one and the same environment from a studio, from a deployment, and from a management standpoint. So answer is yes. We can, and the Worklight Studio is free for download, free for usage as well. There's no restrictions on the timeline. So you can go to IBM/Worklight/download, and you can get a full functional version of IBM Worklight development environment, which is called Studio, that comes along with an embedded server as well. So you can actually build apps, you can do a trial of the apps, you can do the simulation. All of this is part of it. The other question is from Rishabh. Can you tell me the usability of IBM app for the small scale enterprise? So here's what I would put it. When you look at IBM Worklight, it comes with multiple options. There are enterprises who believe that I would need to support millions of users, in which case we have a licensing methodology based on that. On the other end, we have something we call as business to enterprise, or the enterprise edition license. This is something you can buy even as low as for about 30, 40 users, or even 40, 50 users. So from a commercial standpoint, yes. From a usability standpoint, here is what we normally believe, just to make financial sense. The way we would see an organization going in for a mobile platform, Worklight or anything for that matter, is typically when it fulfills the the Gartner's dictum or the Gartner's advice of 3 by 3 by 3. So what it means is there are 3 different parameters that has to align. At least 2 of them has to align before the value starts to come in. So for one, it should ideally have, or you should ideally have, plans to support 3 different mobile operating systems going forward: an iOS, Windows, and a BlackBerry, or an Android tablet, Android phone, and a Windows phone, let's say. You should have plans to have 3 different apps in the near horizon, let's say about 18 to 24 month horizon. And the third 3 is, you should ideally have 3 different backend this talks to. Okay? So if all the 3 aligns, I'll repeat that. The first 3 is about supporting 3 different mobile operating systems, or screen densities or form factors, 3 different applications or mobile apps, and 3 different backend systems. So if you feel all the 3 are aligned, then it's very, very easy to substantiate the value you would get out of a platform. But there are customers who would probably even go with two of those three, not necessarily the entire 3 by 3 by 3. Okay, so I'm just looking at the next set of questions. Okay, so here's a question from Anand. Does IBM Worklight come with any UI or app template? And here's what we do. We have, we support jQuery, Dojo, Sencha, AngularJS, and host of hybrid IDEs that comes along. So all of this UI libraries comes with their own set of app templates. So let's say Dojo or Sencha will have, let's say, a 3D carousel. Right? A jQuery will have, a lot of templated UI controls or UI libraries for building a central app. So most of the UI templates are part of the let's say the third-party library that we come up with. Within Worklight, what we probably do is we ensure that these UI controls are able to bind. Excuse me. Yeah. So in a nutshell, the UI and the app templates come out of these third-party libraries. I'm just looking at the next question. Just give me a second. It's a slightly long question. Okay. So the question is from Andrida. The question is about before deploying app to any platform, I see it needs to be configured for platform-dependent access permissions and some other things. Is there any feature in Worklight that allows us to manage these preferences common to all platforms, and we don't all have to care about platform-specific configurations? So the answer is not straightforward. So let me be honest with you. So if you, let's say, want to build an iOS app, simple example, you could build the entire UI components using Worklight, using the hybrid the IDs or the UI libraries that comes out of Worklight. But still, you would need to go through the the vendor recommendation of ensuring that the compilation happens on a Mac device. So we'll still need to ensure that a Mac device is used to create the IPA. So there are certain integrities from that standpoint that we still need to comply with, because that is part of how the mobile operator expects developers to be. Similar with Windows. I can't have, let's say, a Windows installer will be created out of a Linux machine. But for all of the practical purposes, we can ensure that the single code base, we can ensure that the single set of UI controls and the single set of the adapter API or the backend calls are used seamlessly across all of this. But but still you still need to comply with these standards set by select vendors. Okay, so one question from Ravi. This is the last one, I guess. So can I create a Bootstrap-based website with AngularJS and convert to app for Android/Apple? I'm doing the same using PhoneGap now. Maybe the answer is yes. We can get an AngularJS or a Bootstrap-based HTML5 or HTML4 content, and you can bring it into Worklight. And pretty much the same way what you do currently, you can use to create an app. I guess that was the last of the questions. Okay, I got one more. This is is Worklight completely free, or are there any subscription plans for a single developer? This is from Anand. So the Worklight Studio is completely free. So there's no strings attached. It's not a trial for a certain period of time. So as I said, IBM/Worklight/download. Uh, uh, the studio is completely free. You can develop. You can use that to simulate. You can even put a version on the device. The licensing is pretty much for commercial usage. But as a developer who's trying to build apps or is trying to simulate apps or even trying to create some small pilots, there is no commercial constraint at all. So there's one question again from Deepak. This is Worklight's, okay, I'll rephrase that. Does Worklight server act as a middleware between the end system and the user device? That can actually be an overhead. So Deepak, here is the answer to that. Let's say there is no Worklight server in the middle, and let's say that your APK on the phone is calling the backend directly. Let's say I have a web application in the backend, and that's probably doing a payroll processing for me, or maybe doing a leave management for me. Now, the risk you're running in that case is if somebody intercepts the API or the call I'm making from the device onto the backend, he can pretty much piggyback that to get the information he wants, because I'm exposing over the web or over the over the internet, or public internet rather, the API call that I'm using to make a call to my enterprise system. So that is inherently a very strong security risk. So when you have a Worklight server acting as a middleware, the benefit is, one, you're not exposing it, right? You're only making a call from the phone APK or IP onto Worklight server, and Worklight server knows how to translate that and make the relevant data call to the backend. That's one. The second scenario is you might not have all the mobile ready APIs in the enterprise. Say for example, I'll give you a very simple scenario. Let's look at a simple banking transaction where I'm calling for an account statement for the last 30 days. Now this could probably run into a 2-page or a 4-page data for a lot of people. Now if all that 4-page information is going to flow into a mobile, it's going to get buffered, it's going to take a fair amount of time to get there, right? So it kind of masks the user experience as well. Here, what the middleware does is, it ensures that only a certain part of the data that could be displayed on the first part of the screen could come in, and then the remaining data will be flowing in as and when you scroll down, or it could be buffered as and when you're likely to scroll down, right? So what I'm doing is, one, the time it takes for the page or the data to get refreshed is quite shorter. Second is, I'm kind of ensuring that, this also serves as a cache for a lot of data I might keep going back and forth. Yes, it does introduce an overhead because there is a middleware in between, so it does introduce an overhead. How much of a small it is, it does. But we believe that the benefit it offers, more than justifies, the need for putting that particular mobile middleware. I think I'll just take the last question. This is from Anand. How is this different from Sencha? I believe it's Sencha Touch that you're referring to, Anand. Does it support accessing device resource like camera and etc.? And the answer is yes. Sencha Touch is also one of the UI libraries that we support in Worklight, and it does help you to get the device-specific native functions like camera, calendar, and things like that. Any more questions?
So if you would like to sum up the session for today,
So I
Jerry,
was
you
reading the
can do
question
it
from
now.
Andrida. The question is, yeah, I'll just take one last question. Just got one more from Andrida. His
Of
question
course,
is how
please.
to choose best among available technologies for any app to make e- e- yeah, to make efficient use of processing power and memory usage. And I think we should, probably have some more clarity on this, because the choice of your UI development tool, that's one, and the choice of the technology you would want to go with, whether you want to make it a hybrid, you want to make it a a native, or a mix of hybrid and native. This to a larger extent, depends on the performance or the processing power or the memory usage you would need, right? So maybe what we could do is, we could connect you with a few of our stakeholders who pretty much help our customers on creating their mobile strategy from a technical standpoint based on various parameters, throughput being just one of them, or computing power being just one of them. And that will be a slightly more elaborate discussion. So we'll be happy to share my contacts, and then we'll be happy to connect you with the relevant stakeholder who can help you on specific to the tool and technology for ensuring that a maximizing of memory or maximizing of the processing power. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's the last question we had. So gentlemen, thanks for your time. I really hope it was useful. I'll be sharing this content as well. So in case of anything, you can directly get in touch with us.
And I'm really thankful to our guest speaker today for conducting this wonderful webinar with us. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. Thank you all for joining us today. The recording of the webinar will be available on techgeek.com at the earliest. Thank you all. Thank you, Jerry, for taking the time out. I hope you have a great evening ahead.